Hi, my name is Valerie and these are my Oncidium ampliatum orchids. I potted these orchids in these pots back in March, and I was hoping that the clay pebbles would be better than bark because there's more space between the pebbles and it would be more airy, and hopefully that would help to get rid of this mold that had been growing on the roots. Well, because I didn't treat the mold on the roots before I potted it, it got worse because of the amount of evaporation that's happening with the very airy media. It's growing on the roots, it's growing on the media itself, and it's growing on the base of the pseudobulbs. It seems to only be the older pseudobulbs, but I would like to unpot them and find out how extensive it is. The other thing that I have noticed is on some of the older bulbs, I seem to be having these black spots, and it's a little worrisome. It is on the older bulbs, so I'm hoping that just by cutting off the older bulbs, it won't be able to spread to the newer bulbs, since they're all kind of connected. I would like to unpot them and change out the media for some new pebbles. I would like to sterilize the pots, and then I also want to use some hydrogen peroxide in a spray bottle to hopefully kill off the mold that is on the roots and on the plant itself. And then I also would like to use some listerine, also in a spray bottle, to kind of prevent it from coming back. As you can see, there is that black on one of the older pseudobulbs, and it seems to be on all three plants. So I'm hoping it's just the fact that they are old pseudobulbs. It is a little worrisome because it seems that all of the affected pseudobulbs, except for the two on this plant over here, they all have leaves, and they all seem to work well, except this one, which seems to be in the process of losing its old leaf. But I'm hoping that by dealing with the mold problem and by cutting off these older pseudobulbs that I can save the rest of the plant from being affected. Well, let's see how easy this is. Well, this is interesting. Well, I knew that there were bees poking at the bottom. Oh, I seem to have broken one. It's being a bit finicky. It's stuck to the side of the pot. See if I can just kind of poke that in. There we go. It's got a bunch of algae in there, which we will deal with. Well, if I was worried about there not being a lot of roots, there are definitely roots. You know what? I'm going to soak these real quick. See if that will help. I decided to rinse off the whole plant just for the sake of it. I'm hoping that with it being watered, it'll green up, plump up, and then it won't stick to the root or the clay pebbles so much anymore. Well, they seem to be letting go of this a little better than they did the bark every time I went to go repot that. I'm sorry, roots. Well, if I can't get it all off, it's not too bad. I am going to be spritzing them anyway, So I might as well just work with what I can. So all of this black stuff on these roots like so, that is mold. That is dead and gross. Looks like it was on the base of these as well. And when I touch it by accident, it feels slippery. So that's pretty gross too. I will end up having to sterilize these. I think I will do so with bleach, just to make sure that I get all of the spores killed, so then I can reuse it later if I need to. But see, even though this has grossness all the way down here, it's still greening up. So I unpotted them and I had to separate these two because the roots had grown together a little bit. And I have found some dead roots that need to be trimmed off. So we'll do that first. Unfortunately, I was not able to remove too much of the media without taking off velamen and root tips, so I left a bunch on. I'm going to make sure that I spray everything really well with hydrogen peroxide, including between the pseudobulbs. There's a lot of rotting material in there. And I am trying to decide whether or not I should cut off the old pseudobulbs. Even though it has the black spots on them, they are not squishy. They're actually really hard. So I am trying to figure out, using the internet, if I should take those pseudobulbs off or if I should just leave them there and wait for them to dry up and then I can take them off later. So I decided to take the pseudobulbs off one by one. Of the middle plant, this one was on the outside. It has the really bad yellowed leaf. And if you can see, it's not actually black. It's really more of a dark brown. So I definitely think that this was a bulb that was starting to rot. And then this one, it's kind of the same. I mean, this one is black, but even on the underside, we've got some like little black spots all over. And when I pulled them off one by one, the connection for them was woody. It wasn't like a flesh. So I think the orchid was trying to protect itself anyway. And I think pulling them off one by one to see how I feel about them is the best way to go here. So this is the large one. I already pulled off the two smallest ones on the end, but looking here, even these two pseudobulbs, they are this weird, horrible brownish color. And then we have this over here, which is a much brighter green. I'm hoping that this one is just weirdly discolored and it's not actually going to be sick. So I think I'm going to have to take these two pseudobulbs off as well because I'm just worried about how bad they are. This one actually is black on it. So I ended up trimming off a lot of dead roots, and it's always amazing how you think, I have a lot of roots, and then you trim off the dead ones and it's like, shoot, I don't have that many roots. But I have enough for each one to live, I think. And I just, after trying to get off as much dead stuff as I could, I kind of gave them all a rinse with some water just to make sure that I got as much of that flaky dead stuff off as I could. Now with my handy dandy water spritzer, I actually have it with hydrogen peroxide in there, and I am going to just spray all parts of the plant. I'm just going to let it fizz for a while, and then when it stops fizzing, I will go and do the same thing with listerine. My bathroom smells pretty great right now from that listerine, but I sprayed that hydrogen peroxide on and it fizzed and it fizzed and it fizzed, and I came back like 5 minutes later and it was still fizzing. And when that finally died down, I sprayed on the listerine. I left that alone for 5 minutes. Then I kind of just like took it, flipped it over, sprayed it again with listerine and left it for another 5 minutes just to make sure I got both sides, you know, front and back and in between. And I basically have just let it dry. There are no instructions online about washing listerine off. It even says that if you spray it on once a week or once a month, it's supposed to help repel insects too. So that's a really interesting garden tip. So right now the orchids are drying. I potted them and it was really easy. This is probably one of the best potting jobs I've ever done. Except for this little guy right here, all the roots are covered, which is awesome. So I am hoping that they will just continue to grow and be healthy, and that there won't be any more mold problems, and there won't be any more problems with the pseudobulbs becoming, you know, rotten. It's kind of scary. So we ended up taking off a lot of pseudobulbs. This one only has 2 pseudobulbs left. This one is 3, and this one is 3 with this little one growing off of it as well. I'm hoping that now that I was able to cover the majority of the roots, that it will not have mold problems anymore. So we shall see how that goes, and I hope that this has given you some insight as to what you could do with your orchids if you seem to have a problem like mine with mold on the roots and what seemed to be some form of like I thought it was a black rot originally. Now I think it was more of like a brown rot or like a stem rot or a root rot that was turning into a stem rot or something like that. So I hope that you and your orchids are doing okay and that you have a really nice day.